Umesha mask kwa mtu na jinsi
A very good morning to you all, wherever you may be, and a very good morning and a very good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are tuned in. Let me welcome you to this special meeting, a side event during the 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women here at the United Nations. And with this note, allow me first to perhaps record my appreciation to the organizers of today's side event, namely the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, together with Oxfam International and Landesa Tanzania. I am happy and honored to be your moderator today. My name is Kennedy Gaston, the ambassador and permanent representative of the United Republic of Tanzania to the United Nations here in New York. And let me share with you a few logistical issues before I go into details. First of all, I understand that there is translations or interpretation services that is available to this side event, and our presentation will be able to be interpreted into English, French.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm one of the interpreters, but still waiting for the channels to facilitate interpretation.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I think the IT hosts, please, we need your assistance. We need your immediate intervention so that our interpreters may get necessary links so that they can be able to help and facilitate our side events. Yes, so again, just to mention that the interpretation services is available in English, French, and Spanish. So all intervention may be made in any of these languages. That said, again, having recognized the facilitators, allow me to welcome our special guests, Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, the Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women, and the Special Groups of the United Republic of Tanzania. She will have opportunity to deliver a keynote address, but also together with her, there are other eminent speakers, and I think I'll be able to introduce them when I give them opportunity to speak. With that note, again, I appeal to all of you to mute your mics so that to facilitate the side event, unless when you are given the floor, then you can put on or switch on your mic. But for the time being, I hope that the interpreters are already with the links. Is that the understanding? The interpreters, if you can signal to me that you are connected and you have necessary links.
For me, not yet.
Oh, is that French, Spanish?
Yes, French.
Okay, French. What about the Spanish?
Spanish, not yet.
Oh, and English? Okay. I hope the IT again will their intervention in making sure that those links are available, because I understand some of the audience may not be comfortable to use English or French or Spanish in that order. So at least if all of us are able to connect to the languages that we are familiar with, I think that will be more appreciated. Now, in the meantime, let me use the opportunity to maybe highlight speakers of today's side event. And I hope that the links will be made available to the interpreters. As I said, our chief guest today is Minister for Community Development, Gender, Women, and Special Groups of Tanzania, Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Member of Parliament. The second speaker today is Professor Wakuru Magigi. Professor Wakuru Magigi is the Acting Director General of the National Land Use Planning Commission of Tanzania. The third speaker is Ms. Catherine Bamwenzaki, who is Assistant Director, Environmental Assessment and Climate Change from the Vice President's Office of Tanzania. We also have Advocate Hadija Mrisho. Hadija Mrisho is a land tenure analyst from Landesa, Tanzania. She's a lawyer with expertise in land tenure policy, legal and regulatory framework, customary land rights, land use planning, women's and youth land rights, and issues of climate change. We also have Mr. Masalu Elias Luhula, who is also a land tenure specialist at Landesa. He's also an advocate of the High Court of Tanzania and a former coordinator of the National Land-Based Investment Working Group in Tanzania. He has 8 years experience working on land rights, responsible investment in property and land, and published on land rights and investment. We do have also Dr. Monica Magoke Mhoja, who is a country program director, Landesa, Tanzania. She is a 2003 recipient of the American Bar Association's International Human Rights Award for significant contribution to human rights, rule of law, and access to justice, including land rights and women's rights. Likewise, we have Ms. Naomi Shadrack. She is a Tanzanian international development expert with over 10 years experience working on natural resource governance and women's economic empowerment. She holds a Master of Science degree in Natural Resource Assessment and Management from the University of Dar es Salaam. And she's currently working with Oxfam International as a women's land policy advisor, leading Oxfam's women's land rights work across the globe. We do have Ms. Paine Mako, who is the Executive Director of Ujamaa Community Resource Team in Tanzania. And last but not least is Madam Abeida Rashid Abdallah. She's the Deputy Principal Secretary who is responsible for social welfare, gender, elderly, and children. She's also a member and a former director of a Department of Disability Affairs and chairperson of Women with a Disability Organization. Again, Excellencies, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, here's the list of really key speakers for today's session. Now, with that note, allow me to really, once again, call the meeting to order in a sense of now making a necessary introduction or introductory remark to this meeting. And thereafter, I should be in a position to invite our chief speaker to deliver her keynote address. Now, in terms of the overview of this side event, you recall, you note that issues relating to women's participation and decision-making in climate change debate and discussion, but also connecting it with land village use planning framework, especially in Tanzania, are issues that are among the key priorities of the government of Tanzania and Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania. But equally important, these issues are international in their nature, but also in terms of their impact. And as a side event of the Commission on Status of Women, I think is an opportunity that some of the local experiences in Tanzania may be shared, because remember, what is local can be global. And I think this is one of the platforms that amplifies that kind of understanding. So we hope that the session will bring to our attention gender, women, land rights, and climate change, again, linking practice, amplifying learning and lessons from Tanzania as we move from to inform the global climate change debates. I'm happy that I have a series of eminent, qualified, and the best speaker or speakers you can think of. The speakers, I have already introduced them. So I really am delighted to have opportunity and the honor to moderate a session with these high eminent experts. With that note, again, allow me to welcome Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Minister of Community and of Tanzania, to deliver a keynote address. Honorable Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I believe you hear me. Excellence, Professor Kennedy Gaston, Permanent Representative of Tanzania to the United Nations, distinguished delegates, representatives from member states, representatives from ministries, departments, agencies, UN agencies, development partners, and the CSOs, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, I take this opportunity to thank God for granting us good health and a meet here today. I also thank you for participating in this side event in order to share experiences, showcase, and discuss progress made in implementation of our priorities in line with the priority theme. We all know the theme for this year is gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the context of climate change, environment, and the disaster risk management policies and the programs. Ladies and gentlemen, the side event today is about promoting women's participation and decision-making in addressing climate change, the case of Tanzania's village land use planning framework. As you are aware that Tanzania is a beautiful country gifted with a lot of natural resources, including land, rivers, ocean, wildlife, forests, and land which is abundant. Women in Tanzania depend on these natural resources for their livelihoods and employment opportunity. We are all aware that women and land management cannot be separated. Hence, land use planning is key in women empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, the Integrated Labor Force Survey of 2021 year have shown that active, productive women constitute 13.1 million out of 25.9 productive population in the country. Over 90.4% of the active women population are engaged in agricultural activities, producing about 70% of the country's food requirements. Yet, they are less engaged in emerging opportunities that transforms their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, land is a very important natural resource for human survival and in promoting women's economic empowerment. However, in Tanzania, demand over land is increasing day after day, both in urban and rural areas, hence making it necessary to have a national land use plan. At the same time, land is being degraded by human activities, hence making it necessary to have land use planning. Ladies and gentlemen, in the United Republic of Tanzania, we have progressive legal framework when it comes to women's land rights and women's participation in land governance. The Constitution recognizes equality to own property for all citizens, regardless of their gender. The 1999 Land Act revised in 2019 year, establishes several principles that help to safeguard women's land rights, and the 1982 Local Government Act establishes the village councils, which require that a minimum of 1/4 of village councils members be women. At the grassroots level, the village council is the executive board vested with power in respect of all village affairs, including managing village land. Decisions made at the village councils are then subject to approval from the village assembly, a village highest decision-making board, which includes all villagers, including women. Furthermore, the government ensures women have access to land without limitation imposed by customs, cultures, norms, and traditions. These kinds of reforms contribute significantly to the effort of eradicating discriminatory practices, which hinders women's participation in land governance. Ladies and gentlemen, I am aware we have our experienced panelists and other stakeholders who will showcase best practices in ensuring women's participation in land governance and land use planning in line with our Vision 2025 and that of Zanzibar of 2050 and the Sustainable Development Goals. It is my expectations that at the end of this side event, we shall come up with the strategies and the recommendations of enhancing women's participation in land governance as a way of enhancing environmental management and addressing impacts of climate change. We shall also strengthen systems to ensure all land management programs are more gender responsive. Ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, I declare this side event official opened. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Minister for Community Development, Gender, Women, and Special Groups of Tanzania, for your insightful and extremely helpful keynote address, which really has raised a lot of issues. And I think the subsequent speakers would be able to build on your keynote in showcasing some of the local practices in Tanzania. As I said, local can be global. And I think I really want to thank you and thank you and your ministry for very good initiatives that really are contributing significantly to the achievement of the Agenda 2030, particularly from the UN point of view. With this note, Honorable Minister, once again, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, let me again remind you to mute your mics, because sometimes they make really extremely unnecessary interferences, particularly when a particular speaker is taking the floor. So if you can, all of us really do our best in making sure that our mics are on mute. I think that will facilitate very well our session today. Now, allow me to welcome basically the first speaker after the keynote address. And allow me to invite Professor Wakulu Magigi, who is the Acting Director General of the National Land Use Planning Commission. You have the floor. Is Professor Wakulu Magigi connected? Are you connected? If not, maybe while sorting out the technical issues, I'm sure we shall give him an opportunity to speak when connected. In the interest of time, let me move to the next in the line, Madam Catherine Bamwenzaki. Are you there? Catherine Bamwenzaki. We seem to be facing some technical issues, the connectivity, but I believe the IT will be able to. Oh, yes. I see the Vice President's and Director Assessment. Catherine Bamwenzaki, you have the floor.
I'm ready. I just no, I just want my presentation. You want to display the presentation.
I wonder whether maybe we can move on to Advocate Hadija Mrisho, if you are ready, so that Catherine Bamwenzaki may somehow sort out technical issues, connectivity issues that you may be seeing. Once again, can I appeal to all of you really to mute your mics so that to allow speakers to be audible?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Is Hadija there? Hadija Mrisho?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Yes. So I think let me allow the next speaker, Hadija Mrisho, to present, and then after I'll come back to.
I'm ready.
Yeah, participants.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I am very happy to be able to be given a chance to present. And on behalf of Landesa, we'll be presenting a topic on deep diving on the village land use framework from a gender analysis perspective. I'll start with Landesa's experience. Sorry, it looks like there's a technical, someone else is sharing.
That's correct. Just a minute. Again, the IT person can help us to perhaps mute everybody except.
Tuma message sikusikii. Tuma message. Apologies for that. Sikusikii. I'll take you back to where Landesa started. Landesa started in 1981 as an international organization established to collaborate with government and land rights organizations, extend rights to the world's poorest, and in this case, rural women and men. We have empowered millions of men and women with the powerful tools to improve their livelihood. And Landesa has worked in 50 countries with our offices in different countries. We have offices in USA, Tanzania, Liberia, India, and China. And in Tanzania, Landesa is registered as an international non-government organization, and therefore we are allowed to operate in country. And so with land use planning and facilitation, Landesa works, Landesa advocates for land planning processes and practices that are gender responsive and inclusive of the needs and aspiration of men and women, who are specifically those who are living in rural areas. We also have expertise in capacity building, specifically for the national level and local level. For instance, the national land use planning and other village and district councils organs. But we have managed to create a good relationship with bodies that are working on land use planning, for instance, the Commission, and the other district level institutions. But again, we work in collaboration with civil societies and NGOs that are working on land right and land use planning, climate change, and gender. We also aspire to share best practices, and currently we support dialogues on the development of formulation of the national land use policy. And this work has been done in collaboration with FAO and the Commission itself to see a way on how we can formulate a specific policy on land use planning processes. But again, we are taking part in reviewing relevant laws and policies that are governing land use, climate change, and gender. We have also conducted a desk research on what in other countries has been done on land use, so that we can take those lessons and apply them in our specific context. Those ones that are applicable and that fit our context. But again, we have also supported finalization of the participatory village land use planning guidelines to mainstream gender. So if you look at the guideline, it has some elements of gender inclusion. And so coming to the gender perspective in land use planning processes, we aspire, as it is included in the guideline, that gender analysis, which are critical during the process, and they involve systematic and analytical processes based on sex disaggregated and gender information, to make sure that we identify, understand, and describe gender differences and relevance on gender roles and power dynamics during the land use planning process. Again, we take note of that gender analysis, they help to ensure equitable participation of women in the land use planning process in projects, and it also helps in determining roles in outcomes of the process. When it comes to land use planning process, we need to take note that despite the fact that 60% of the Tanzania, of the urbanization that is taking place right now, 60% of the population lives in rural areas. But out of 12,488 villages in Tanzania, only less than 20 villages have undertaken land use process. And so this takes us to the fact that climate change still impacts and poses a significant risk to these villages that have not undertaken the land use planning. But how we need to also understand the connection between land use planning processes and the security of tenure for women. When women take part in the process, at the end result for them to be issued with a customary certificate of right of occupancy, these CCROs, they apply as proof of ownership for their land in case there is a need for them to show evidence or documentation or to signify their ownership. Their certificates can apply, and that is a good way to show proof of ownership. But again, it also helps women in terms of capacity to address climate change, because their participation would help them to even air their views that this area should be allocated for conservation, or this is for water catchment and all that. So land use helps community to, it enhances community capacity to adapt to climate change. But again, the capacity to negotiate and defend their land rights. The linkage between climate change, land use planning, and gender is inevitable. And we also need to note that climate change effects are not homogeneous. They vary depending on gender between men and women. And this is because they differ. These two groups differ in terms of gender roles, challenges, rights, and preference. And this applies even to young girls. Climate change poses the risk of perpetuating inequalities. given the fact that most of the time women have limited access to productive resources. But in Tanzania, we need to note that 70% to 8% of women live and practice subsistence farming, and therefore they produce for their families food. Yet the majority of them have only access to productive resources, specifically land. At the same time, men retain the right to own, they retain the right to control and even inherit land compared to women. Since most of women have inadequate ownership and control over land, they have limited opportunities to invest in sustainable land use. And therefore, this limited access to resources have led women and young women to experience more impact caused by climate change, and therefore their ability to adapt is very, very low. And so why women and girls' participation in the land use planning process? It takes back to the framework that are existing, the Constitution, the National Land Policy, the two laws, the Village Land Act and the Land Act. They provide for women's right to own, access, and even control over land and other natural resources. So with that right, they also automatically have the right to participate in land use planning process. It also helps it to avoid biases towards men against women, as opposed to conventional planning process that these sideline women into the process. But again, women involvement in land use planning process, it ensures inclusion of women voices, inclusion of women interest, but again, women needs when it comes to land use. And so this is a good way to include women voices into climate plans and strategies. But again, most importantly that I want to emphasize that their participation is, it enhances or strengthens their participation in land governance by planning the use. Automatically, they are taking part on how such lands in their villages should be governed and administered. Despite all these goods and the benefit of their participation, women still face challenges. I wish to end my presentation there so that my colleague can take over and take us through the challenges. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Masalu Luhula. I'll just connect from where Hadija ended.
Presented by yourself.
Takes me to sharing with you some of the policy and practical challenges. This is not exhaustive, but I will just mention a few as I pointed out. That being said by Hadija, land use planning process happening in the villages still face the challenges of having weaknesses of local institutions, and that takes us to the decisions being made by mostly men who participate in the meetings because of the weaknesses that are in the institutions at local level. But it is the truth that land use planning process happens in an arena that is not guided by a specific policy on land use planning. The policies that exist is the national land policy and not a specific policy on land use planning. And therefore, we share with the audience that this might, because having no policy, then the directives regarding land use planning are missing in the process. We all understand that customs and traditions in different parts of our country, in villages, are still existing. And therefore, most of them are so discriminatory that excludes women in the process. And therefore, that is one of the challenges as well. But also, there is a likelihood in the process of land use planning, the process to be captured by the elite and the well-off people. And therefore, then instead of securing tenure for the people, and then makes them more poor because they lose their land miserably. But also there is a limited legal knowledge in most of the community members, and therefore they don't understand actually, in case they lose their rights, how to reclaim them from the authorities. And that is one of the challenges, not forgetting the gender data information in the systems. I think we all agree, in case if no one agree, but I agree in myself, that we're missing a lot in the information that exists on the ground. There might be some land use plans being made in different parts of the country, but this information is just being isolated in different sources, and therefore it's very hard to tell the true story. Then let me take you quickly to Mufindi, where it is our experience. And yes, of course. In Mufindi, which is one of the districts in the southern highlands of Tanzania, in collaboration with Pelham Tanzania, we piloted as Landesa to see and test, especially as it was said by Hadija, that in 2020, the National Land Use Planning Commission, in collaboration with other stakeholders, validated its integrated and participatory land use planning guideline, which in fact, it came with the innovation, which I think Landesa was so excited to see, engendering the process, meaning the land use planning process, but also mainstreaming climate change, which land use planning is taken to be one of the tools which prepare community being resilient. This was a one-year test, and now we are planning to upscale and also look into how things can happen in case land use planning is done to the entire process of 60 stages, because the experience shows many of the land use planning are done and ends at the 4th stage. Then in our engagement in Mufindi, we also tried to make a simple analysis of one being land ownership by sex. You will be extremely excited, I guess, to see, regardless of being mentioning persistence of discriminatory customs and traditions, in Ihomasa village, which is in Mufindi, at least 53% of the CCRO that were issued to women, but also we have been talking of youth and the adults. Youth are not behind the process. They are part of it, regardless of their low number in participation. You will see that in the graph that appears on your screen, at least 64 people in Ihomasa were youth who received the CCROs. But also you can see in Nundwe, at least 115 people with above 35 were people who received CCROs. But you can still acknowledge that in Ihomasa, female showed up extremely. But I think the interesting story from Mufindi was that you can see on the chart that is appearing on your screen, majority of the owners were individual owners and followed by joint ownership. But what is so much interesting is that in Nundwe village, more than 50% of the land ownership were ownership by spouse, meaning joint ownership. That for us was one of the really exciting experience, regardless of having persistence of customs and traditions which are discriminatory. And I think the lesson that we had, and what is now ending before I hand over the mic to Dr. Monica to really share with us the concrete stories. One of the lessons is that engendering land use planning is crucial if we need to secure tenure security for the communities. But nevertheless, gender and climate change are foundational for an equal future. And consideration of community and group natural resources uses is critical. As much as we emphasize on individual ownership, it's very important to acknowledge the group uses of land in communities. However, taking cognizance of the rights of women who sometimes they end up in the receiving end, but also simplified bylaws are very critical for an inclusive decision-making and transparency and implementation of the land use planning. And finally, strengthening local level governance is also very crucial if we need gender inclusion in the process of land use planning and building a generational equality. That being said, I wish to pass the mic to, okay, thank you so much. And that's where I end, and I thank you.
I think Dr. Monica, you have the floor to finish the presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ambassador. I was part of the work in Findi. I was also part of the trainers in collaboration with people from Land District Office in Mufindi. And what I can say, we have some stories to tell, stories which are very encouraging, stories which can showcase that if we do it right, in engendering the process, in providing training and awareness creation, which are gender responsive, we can find that even in areas where there is strong patriarchal, people change, men change, women change, people who have been socialized in discriminating women or seeing women as a second level citizens. And one of the stories, a story from an elderly woman who bequeathed her land to 3 widows, her daughters-in-law. And this old woman was very happy. Actually, in Swahili, the way she was giving her testimony was very, very interesting and inspiring. She actually said, I'm very happy. Not just saying, she was really very happy, jovial, laughing, smiling, that I'm very sure this paper document is very important for my in-laws. This is a mother-in-law allowing her land to be given to widows and her grandchildren. It's not easy in most of areas where it's a patriarchal areas, but she said their land is secure now against any encroachment or eviction. She went far saying, and in Swahili say, hata nikienda kazi kubwa, and we were very surprised, kazi kubwa, what is kazi kubwa? Because it's like, even if I get a certain job which is very high, but she meant, even if I die today, I'm confident that people respect this paper that proved to be their land and free from humiliation. So this shows that for titling, it increases confidence to some of women so that they know this is my land, and my children, my grandchildren, even my daughters-in-law, like this elderly widow, they are going to be secure. And also another very good story was from a man. This man attended the trainings, some of the group discussions, and after being sensitized, he said, I don't understand why women should not own land. Why? Land is power, and therefore women also need it as men do. And of course, he knew that according to the land laws in Tanzania, the law is very clear, as my colleagues has already highlighted. So it was very exciting. You know, when you see some results, some impact, that some of these men are now actually ensuring that their daughters, their wives are going to get land. I can tell you, during the process with surveyors, we are just, accompanying them. When you go in Nunda, for instance, these couples, the surveyors were asking them, what do you want? Who is going to own this land? And the husband will say, I'm going to own it with my wife. And I would like my daughters also to inherit this land. So those are some very good examples, which actually some other organizations could also learn from the Nundwe example. So it's very important. We are saying at Landesa that collaboration among stakeholders, both public and private and government, is very important for land use planning process. This is something which we have learned through the process. And also community legal empowerment is very, very critical for discriminatory customs-free generation. And this for both men and women, old and youth. And also it is also critical and very important to have intensive community consultation and engagement for both men and women. No one should be left behind. And land use planning policy, which we are actually working in collaboration with the Commission to, dialogues, is also very important. And research has shown that in other countries, that is also very important. I am concluding by saying that gendered land ownership data generation is crucial for land governance and legal reform. And also a land use planned community is foundational for generational equality, is very important. And also a land rights secure community is highly likely to be climate change resilient. And this secure community, both men and women. And final, last but not least, despite that this land using planning process is long and costly, but this is very important for achievement of national, regional, and global agendas. We have global agendas, including the Convention on Elimination of All Forms Against Women. So if we want, and for sure to eliminate all discrimination against women, land use planning process, engendering mainstreaming climate change is very important. We are going to reach the SDG Agenda 2030 and the Africa we want. Thank you very much. I submit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monica Magoke Muhoja, who is the country program director of Landesa Tanzania, but also Mr. Masalu Elias Lutula, a land tenure specialist at Landesa, and Advocate Hadija Mrisho, also a land tenure analyst at Landesa Tanzania. This was a joint presentation by the three eminent speakers on deep diving on the participatory and integrative village land use planning from a gender analysis perspective. Well presented. I think we appreciate very much a lot of issues that we've raised and the experience that you have shared with us. I'm sure when we come to the interactive session thereafter, maybe there could be some participants who may wish to raise some issues or clarification or intervention on these topic. Now, I see that there is a hand from Mwajuma Ahmed. I'm reading the account. Maybe there is an announcement. Is there any point that I understand? I wonder whether that hand is raised for, is it by mistake? Is it by default or design? And I wish to ask if Mwajuma Ahmed, I'm reading the name as it appears on your account, if you have any point that you want to raise before I invite the next speaker. Mwajuma Ahmed. All right, I hope that the hand is just a technical issue that's happened on that particular account. Now, allow me to invite next speaker, but also before that, inform you that the Swahili interpretation services is available. for those who may want to tune in Kiswahili, and perhaps for those who may wish to make intervention as well in Kiswahili, the same can be interpreted into other languages. Now, with that note, allow me to welcome Professor Wakuru Magigi, who is the Acting Director General of the National Land Use Planning Commission. You have the floor, Professor, if you are there online.
Thank you, Professor. Your Excellency, Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women, and Special Groups, Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joseph Paul, presenting on behalf of Professor Wakuru Magigi. The topic is on policy and legal framework related to women governing land use planning in Tanzania, issues and future prospects. But through following the previous presentations, I think most of the issues have been addressed. As you have said that in issues related to women or related to gender, even the Constitution of the United Republic of Tanzania recognizes that there is the right for both women and women to possess land and property. And it prohibits discrimination on basis of gender among for occupiers or occupants. Also, checking on policies related to land use planning, we are using the National Wildlife Policy, National Forest Policy, Environmental Policy, Livestock Policy. All these policies has mostly accommodated gender issues. And checking, for instance, the Environmental Management Act, the National Land Use Planning Act, all these regulations are instruments we are using in preparing land use plans. And all these accommodate the issues of women and gender. Sure. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I hope now you can follow. Yeah, we have the guidelines for village land use plans. Currently, the 2022 one, it also has been detailed addressing the issues of gender, the same to National Land Use Planning Act. The National Land Use Framework will also address. But why women land use in land use planning? These my colleagues has also said on this why we need to address this in land use planning. Actually, this is a constitutional mandate, and in promoting land use related instruments, as we know that women are key stakeholders in production system, and we know that women participation in land use planning is crucial for sustainable development. Dear colleagues, we have different planning levels. We have the National Land Use Planning Commission. This is a planning authority at the national level. We have the District Land Use Planning Authority. This is a planning at the district level. And we have the village government as a planning authority. And we have different type of plans. We have the National Land Use Planning Framework. We have the zonal or regional land use planning framework. We have the district land use plan framework. We have the joint village land use plan and the village land use plan. But all these in different steps has accommodated the issues of gender. Taking, for instance, preparation of village land use plans are the initial steps. in establishing the plum team. Actually, this is it's based on professional qualifications, but at the village council, according to the local government, the formation of the village council, there are certain number of females who are to be in the village council. But to us, in National Land Use Planning Commission, the guideline we developed is that the village land use management committee, it consists of 8 members with gender consideration of at least, if there are 8, then you are at least half of it. Sorry for spelling mistakes. And in village council meetings, we encourage that the village council and village general assembly meetings that females are encouraged to attend in meetings and in decision makings. In all these steps of preparation of village land use plans, mapping process and community action development process, these are promoting gender. For instance, in village council, as I said, currently we promote that at least half of it, but for now is almost 3 out of 7. For apart from villa, now for village land dispute resolution council, it must consist of 3 females. If the members are 7, then at least 3 are females. But also, the land law, it requires, for example, in detailed in step 5 of village administration, that the land law requires village council to treat all applications equal, regardless of the gender. And in issues of CCROs, we are promoting that if the couples are married couples, then both of their names has to be appeared in CCROs. And in all steps in community action preparations and implementations, we're encouraging gender equality. But we are facing, or the community also are facing various challenges, as my colleagues said. Most of the challenges are stigmas. The cultures we have that males are dominating in village meetings and village leaderships. So most of local cultures do not give chance for women to lead, to get involved in land issues. And most women are not involved in decision making, as I said, but also there is a lack of awareness on the importance of land use and land related matters and land use planning at all. Through the guidelines we have developed, and we think that there is a need of having a land use policy, which will address and accommodate all of these issues. And we think that there is a need also for increasing awareness creation on the policy and law governing land use planning through different forums like this one, and promotion of women to be involved in leadership from the grassroots, women at from the village level. Ladies and gentlemen, I present and I submit. Thank you.
I thank very much Dr. Joseph Paul, speaking on behalf of Professor Wakul Magigi on a very important topic, namely related to women governing land use planning in Tanzania, issues and the future prospects. I thank you very much. Now, I again, distinguished participants, I invite you to make good use of our chat box. It seems there are a lot of comments that, and I think it's important if you can revisit them, but also use the chat to raise some intervention that you may wish to bring to the attention of speakers. And then I'll see if time permits, if some of those questions, comments, I may invite speakers or whoever is addressed to that questions to respond to that. So again, make good use of the chat box. I see a very good comment in the chat box. But I also apologize that some were unable to hear my opening remarks. And I see that that's comment came from one person called with the name Joaquin, but I hope that that is not Her Ladyship Justice Joaquin Di Mero, the former president also of the Tanganyika Law Society. Now, with that note, let me now invite the next speaker, Ms. Catherine Bamwenzaki, who is Assistant Director, Environmental Assessment and Climate Change from the Vice President Office. She'll be presenting on ecosystem-based adaptation for rural resilience in Tanzania and case of land use planning. Madam Catherine Bamwenzaki, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yeah, Your Excellency, Honorable Ambassador, the protocol is observed. I'm going to present a case on promoting women in addressing climate change in Tanzania villages, which is Tanzania villages land use planning. The project is it is known as ecosystem-based adaptation for rural resilience in Tanzania. That is EBA, and the case is of land use planning. My colleagues, we all know that climate change, we are living already impacts of the climate change. And the adverse impacts of the climate change will continue to overburden the poor, on which most of them are the poor women. Women are the ones who are doing the most economic activities for the domestic households, and that is why they are most vulnerable. Women are still have less economic, political, and legal clout, and hence they have less. My presentation is. Okay. I can't see the PowerPoint. Sorry, I can't see my presentation very well. Maybe I don't know the technique. That's the technique. So women are, although women are powerful agents of climate change and are continue to make increasing and we are continuing to make increasing and significant contribution to sustainable development. Yeah. So with these challenges, how can we help the women to adapt to the climate change? One of the efforts that are undertaken is the ecosystem-based adaptation for rural resilience. This is a project which is financed by the Global Environmental Finance under the UNEP, and the Vice President's Office is the National Executing Partner. It's a 5-year project with 1 year to December 23. And it is being implemented in the districts which are found to be the most dry areas within the country. That is the Simanjiro district, the Mpwapwa, the Mvomero, the Kishapu, and the Kaskazini A in Zanzibar. So the aim of this project is to increase the resilience to climate change in the rural communities of Tanzania, and to strengthen the ecosystem resilience and diversifying their livelihood. Through this project, we expect that the stakeholders within the areas will be improved to the adaptation of the climate change. but also will increase the resilience of the project sites through demonstration of ecosystem-based adaptation practices, and also is going to strengthen the information based on the EBA supporting in the upscaling. The project also considers the gender issues, which is the most key and the utmost significance in the entire project cycle. In particular, women have been given the most engagement in the activities. Specifically, when going to one of the specific activities of this project is the participatory land use plan, which is one of the project activities and with the contribution towards increased resilience in the project sites through demonstration of the EBA practices and improved livelihood. In this land use planning, women have actively been involved in developing and implementing the land use. The land use within the village land use planning committees, which include 7 members. Amongst those 7 members, the 3 of them at least 3 have to be women. And also the chair of those committees must be a woman. And therefore, within this project, within the areas of the project implementation, we have at least we have about 51 women, which are members and they have been engaged in their respective activities. The land use planning management had involved the general 3 steps, which are the awareness creation. We started by creating awareness among the communities, but also the community were participated in the appraising the land, but also they have also participated in the preparation of the maps and the mapping of the existing lands, so that they know, and also they agreed to the new proposals, but also improve the plans and bylaws of the village assembly, and also by installing the signboards showing the specific use of the lands. Another area of the project was on the demarcation of the land for various land uses. The areas were demarcated for agriculture, for grazing, forest reserves, reforestation, water resources, but also for livestock infrastructures and the other uses. Yeah, the participatory land use plan has its benefits. One is the demarcated land for various land uses, including the land for EBA intervention. The areas that are already demarcated, then people know that a specific area is already reserved for specific activities. So this also reduces the conflicts between the different users groups. To women also who have their land for their activities, they are given a comfort on doing their income generating activities without any fear. But also it is strengthened the village and land administration in project areas. There are challenges also during the implementation of this project that have been observed, and one is the low awareness amongst the community and also the fear of losing their land. That is one of the challenges, but also there's also budgetary constraints on the implementation of the land. They were able to do they had this project that support them, but otherwise in other areas it's very difficult for them to have that practices. Measures more awareness raising is being practicing, but also implementation of participatory village land using, and also formulated of bylaws for sustainable land management, and also restore degrade land and reduce land conflicts between different users.
Okay, go stupid. Go
So
crazy.
this one are the
Go stupid.
pictorial evidence
Go
of,
crazy. Yeah. Go stupid.
land use
Go
plan.
crazy. Stupid.
The first picture shows
Go crazy.
the village
Go stupid.
in a meeting.
Go crazy.
With the
Go stupid.
women
Go crazy. Yeah. Go stupid. Go crazy.
This is
Stupid.
at Mpwapwa district.
Go crazy. Go stupid.
The other one is Manchiro district. So this one is also at the Kaskazini AU Unguja, and the figure 4 is there. It shows village at the village land use planning committee at the Shaku district. And finally, this is the one area which is reserved for a forest, and a signboard was put there to show that this is the area reserved for regeneration of the land, but also the reserve of the forest. Colleagues, I thank you for your attention.
I thank you very much, Catherine Wamwanzaki, for your presentation. But again, let me appeal to the participants to really manage our accounts in terms of making sure that our mics are off, because there is account Samantha Penny.
Go crazy. Go stupid. Go crazy.
Perhaps unnecessary
go crazy. Yeah.
And
go
the
stupid.
IT.
Go crazy.
If IT team can intervene, that would be very much appreciated, so that we can
very appreciated.
We can proceed with our session today. Okay, now let me invite the next speaker. And the next speaker is Naomi Shadrack. And Naomi Shadrack, as I introduced her already, she is expert in terms of the international development, expert with over 10 years experience working on natural resource governance issues and also women's economic empowerment. Naomi, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ambassador. I'm going to speak about why is it important for us to promote leadership of women on land use planning as a way to combat climate crisis. As the title of our session today says, promoting women's participation in decision making in addressing climate change. All this is the way to make sure that women are in the leadership, women are taking role in combating climate crisis. And this is very important. So my very short presentation will aim at addressing why is it important for women to take leadership in combating climate crisis. Sorry. So why should we care about gender justice on land use planning? What we do, land use planning is very important for development, for women economic empowerment, for those who went through the land use planning framework. We attached it in the UN system. If you go through it, you'll find that it helps us to reach development as Tanzanians, because it helps us to plan our land use, and also it empower communities on how to use their land, like if it's agriculture, it's mining. So community in Tanzania can know how to use them, how to control natural resources, and also how to manage. So by promoting women participation, we enable women to be agents of their own transformation and transform their lives as well. And also it helps us to promote accountability of institution. Dr. Joseph has mentioned about how the land use planning framework provide quotas for women to be part of different committees. So what does that help? It helps in accountability of institutions such as the land, such as the village committees or village assembly, by ensuring women are there. Women are there to say that when we are planning this land, here is where we are getting firewood. So you have to consider us. So it's accountability checking, ensuring that those things which are important for women are being considered. Another thing, why is it important is because it's a human rights issue. Tanzania is part of CEDAW, Commission on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And we want to remove all the discrimination. We understand in the patriarchal culture, women and girls are classified as, not always, but as less strong, economically less attractive, not suitable for leadership, needing protection and control. For this reason, women are being marginalized and they are denied access, control to resources. And also they are denied power in discussing issues pertaining climate change. Please mute if you're not speaking, thanks. So importance of intersecting this is, as the former speaker said, climate change does not affect people equally. Sorry, would you mute iPhone? Sorry, would you mute? Yes, okay, thank you for muting. Climate change does not affect people equally. Women, as I mentioned, some of the vulnerability women are experiencing, women are very marginalized. So we have to consider women in land use planning, and we are so happy, we are glad as Tanzania, the land use planning framework provides for that. But we have strong framework, and I think that's something we can be proud of. Action is required. My fellow presenters have mentioned that number of villages have not not have a land use planning framework. So it's something which all of us, government in cooperation with CSO, even donors, some developed countries who have contributed a lot in climate crisis, should fund this land use planning in developing countries, because that's a way we can combat climate change. But also we have to understand. Sorry, Sarah, you are sharing your screen. So Sarah has shared her screen. I can't share mine. But I can continue. We have to understand that projects are not neutral. Okay, we have to understand that projects are not neutral. So whatever project we are doing, if we don't consider gender, we'll find that in one way or another, women are going to be discriminated. So it's very important for all actors who are doing different projects. If you don't consider gender in any project, you are going to lead to women being discriminated. And another thing, as I said, it's a human right. So because it's a human right, women have to be considered. My presentation follows with the presentation of my sister, Paine. We work with UCRT in land use planning project. So let me share and welcome Paine to do the presentation. Welcome, sister.
Yes, Paine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for giving me this opportunity to represent Tanzania, but also to represent Ujamaa Community Resource Team, which is the organization I work for. So a brief introduction about UCRT or Ujamaa Community Resource Team in relation to land use planning. UCRT has worked in the northern part of Tanzania for the last 20 years, focusing on land rights, governance, natural resource management, and women rights and leadership forums as a platform of advocating for women's land rights. UCRT has been able to secure over 1.2 million hectares of land, communal land, after undertaking the land use planning process. So in relation to women and land rights, the local issues around that are lack of active participation, and this relates to existing social and cultural norms, women's unequal access to land, which is a key obstacle to economic empowerment for women, limited spaces in decision-making power, and the control of land and its related resources. Another issue is lack of enforcement of our very progressive laws here in Tanzania, which enables women to realize equal land rights. Other related issues are, and this is an emphasis, the role women play in land management, which is in most cases ignored. You know, the things women do to manage land, such as treating forests as sacred places, picking of dry firewood to use as fuel or firewood, is a way of protecting and managing land in a better way. Plucking with a lot of tender care, medicinal plants. We also know that pastoral communities, and of which I am relating my context to, women take the key role of constructing houses, and the houses are constructed using local materials from the forest. And to maintain and take care of the forest, the material used is diverse to ensure that continuity and survival of a forest and the environment is continues. Again, I will focus more on the communal land ownership. A lot has been said about the land use planning. And of course, communal land ownership relates to land use planning. We know that communal lands are key to the livelihoods of many Tanzanians, but particularly for pastoralists and hunter-gatherers who use land communally for their survival. Pastoralists and hunter and gatherers often live in areas of high natural resource value, such as wildlife, forest areas, water resources, and their Sorry for that interruption. So pastoralists live in areas of high natural resource value, such as wildlife, forest, water resources, and their way of life, the seasonal grazing patterns, can lead to the misinterpretation or misconception that their community land is unused or empty, and thus available for alternative purposes. And this brings a lot of conflict within these communities. So land use plans provide the clear boundaries for communal lands, and thus enable the village council, governing body, and community members to protect more and legally communal lands from encroachment or further subdivision, which will affect their survival and livelihood. A communal certificate of customary right of occupancy promotes equality by protecting the interest of the entire group or the entire community. And this strengthens the rights of vulnerable groups within the community, such as women and children and other minorities, because it's a sustainable way in which other generations find the land and continue to benefit from the land. So a certificate of customary right of occupancy, from our own experience, is an effective tool, particularly for pastoral and hunter-gatherers groups, to strengthen their community rights and securing communal lands. And this is particularly provided by our Village Land Act. And previously it has not been very well used, but we are using this to protect communally owned lands in the landscape. So so in relation, I can't see the map I shared in my presentation, but I can explain. So in relation to communal lands, the map displays better how we do this. But while undertaking land use planning, we ensure that there is a connection between the use of one land to another, particularly with communities with similar interests, to be able to allow them to move from one place to another, which is a key adaptive mechanism to climatic changes for the pastoralist group. Mobility is key for their survival. And thus, while undertaking land use planning, communally used lands are connected to each other to allow these communities to be able to access resources from one community to another, resources that are not available in one village. So in essence, these communities need open and connected lands to be able to survive and to take care of their livestock. So in cases where, for example, the Loliondo case, where land is taken for other, say, exclusive conservation, it means that community land is then reduced, and the survival of communities is also affected because they are squeezed into smaller pieces of land, and then they are not able to practice the mobile systems that enables them to adapt to climate change. So when it comes to communal land rights, it's very difficult also to bring out the land ownership or land rights of women. And so Ujamaa Community Resource Team uses Women Rights Leadership Forum platform to engage as a way of engaging women in this land use planning process to ensure that they are part and parcel or equal in terms of governing structures in the land use planning process. And so with this, society has put us in boxes or restricts us from experiencing our outermost capacities. And so we try in educating, in using these platforms, in this platform called Women Rights and Leadership Forums, we try to bring these different groups out of these boxes that we've been fixed to understand that equal participation, equal engagement, equal leadership position promotes the needs of the entire community and not just a certain groups of people. So educating women as a group and educating men or male traditional leaders as a group helps to change the mindset or the attitude both groups have that, land is a male dominated area, and that will bring communities together to make equal decisions in relations to land and land access, ownership, and resource sharing from resources accrued from land. So my final slide touches on the challenges. One of the challenges related to land use planning and communal land ownership, particularly in the northern part of the country, where, as I said, is natural resource rich. There's a lot of conflicting interest in the landscape. Talk about investors with their own interest, communities with their own interest, conservation with their own interest, and also government priorities, and they're not necessarily always the same. And this brings about a lot of conflict within the same lands. So also another issue is the high illiteracy rate in these areas, which makes land use planning an expensive process because it pushes us to take more time to educate communities to understand this technical process called land use planning, so that communities are able to accept, endorse, and own the process, and particularly among women. Another big issue is changing the mindset and attitude to accept women as equal players in land access, the management, and benefit sharing. This takes a lot of effort and also takes a lot of time, but also resources. I submit, thank you.
I thank both of you, Naomi Shadrach and Paine Marco. As Naomi said, the two sisters from Oxfam, but also from the Ujamaa Community Resource Team. Distinguished participants, we have had all the first round of speakers, and we still have about 30 minutes where we can have some sort of interaction session. As I said initially, I invite you to make good use of our chat box. A lot of good comments in the chat box, but also you can use it to raise questions, if any. And for now, allow me to really invite two individuals that I have seen in the chat box, really raising questions, but also making necessary comments. Indeed, I'm not inviting them as another speakers, so I'll give each one of them 2 up to 3 minutes, really, to make their comments heard in the platform, and allow me to invite Justice Joaquin Dimero, if she is there. I saw a lot of good comments from her iPhone. I wish if the same can be presented in a minute or two, so that can be widely shared with everybody here. Justice Dimelo, are you there? If yes, a minute or two, please.
Shut up, shut up.
Hello.
Yes, you have the floor.
Can you? Yeah, it's good evening here in Tanzania. I'm not quite sure what time it is there.
People are shouting at
I think we need intervention from our IT team to help us so that some interruptions can be eliminated or
limited. Black boy. Nah, you don't deserve them. Sorry, you're not a black boy.
I'm sorry, just Dimero. Are you online? Okay, if not, while Justice Dimero is maybe sorting out some technical issues with the able hand of our IT team, allow me to invite the account named Anna Marwa. You also had raised question and some comments. And again, I give you the floor for a minute or two so that your views can be shared widely with the audience. Anna Marwa, are you there? We seem to have, again, some technical issues. Hello, everybody. I'm not sure if, oh yes, Anna Mara, you seem to be
Hello.
connected.
Hello.
Yes, please, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Marwa, and I led the concern on the women participating in these village land use meetings. Basing on our traditions and customs background, most of the women cannot even express themselves from these village meetings. So I would like to know more from the experience on the how they develop village land use and how they promote women to participate in these meetings and how encourage them to give their views and how they participating directly from the village meetings, because from our tradition and customs, women cannot even speak before men. So how women can express themselves or can give decisions over men with regard to the allocation of resources that can benefit their interest. So I just wanted to know from the experiences.
Oh yes, I'm back. I think I was again, I was muted. Now, I thank you, Anna Mara, for your question and very constructive intervention. And I believe that one of the panelists, because you not address specifically to anyone specific, so I think any one of you may wish to respond to the question. But allow me to take perhaps first round of questions, like 2, 3, or 4 questions, so that we can they all can be addressed, and then before we move to the second round. I don't know whether Justice DeMello, are you still there? I had. Are you there? I would appreciate if the account of Dr. Joseph Paul could be muted. Thank you very much. Justice DeMello, are you still there? Okay, if not, again, the floor is open to anyone with a question or any point of intervention. It does not have to be a question. In fact, you may also wish to, amplify or add on what has been presented, share your own experiences or otherwise. In the meantime, can I invite any of the panelists who may wish to address the question that was raised by Anna Marwa, while waiting others to join in terms of raising questions, if any panelists, please. Any panelists? Yes, I see account written TK. TK, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to answer the question that that Anna raised with regard on how we can sort some of the issues to ensure that women are participating in the decision-making bodies and their decisions are, and whatever that they air out are taken on board. I think of recent, some of the civil society working together with the local, with the district administrations, we have come up with the development of the bylaws, village bylaws. and which is participatory. The communities are the ones who come out and share what they want for their community. So the civil society are there to just guide on different issues to do with, when to conduct the meeting, how the land should be distributed within the communities, how women are able to also participate. So if we can take this on board, the development of bylaws within the local government to the level of TAMISEMI, I think this will answer a lot of questions and will ensure at least women are participating fully in the decision-making bodies within where they are located, and to come up to the national level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite Naomi Shadrack to also share some of your reflections on the question raised? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Ambassador. One of the strengths of the National Land Use Planning Framework, which I think that's very important. We are discussing it and how important it is before doing anything, it allows for gender analysis of the particular community. Which is very important to respond to the question Anna raised. So after doing the gender analysis of the particular community, that means you'll understand how gender dynamics are in that particular community. But one of the tools of doing participatory rural appraisal in the National Land Use Planning Framework, it's one's focus group discussion. And this is done deliberately to allow people of homogeneous characteristics to discuss issues in separate groups, to allow women to have their groups. So you have different groups of women, groups of children, and to see how they're raising different issues. So it's upon practitioners, it's upon people who are facilitating the land use planning in particular community. But according to the framework, I would say it's very powerful, it's very important, and it's something which other countries may try to look at and adapt as we are aspiring to end the climate crisis. Thank you so much.
Naomi Shadrack, I thank you very much. Mr. Masalu Ruhula, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. In fact, I share position with the previous speakers, and also I share Anna's concern. In fact, we all agree that issues of gender and especially women rights to participate in decision making, it's a matter of a system. Yeah, there are a lot of strategies that can be employed, but it is undisputed that at the end of the day, decisions which are binding are made through the formal system of making decisions. Yeah, of course, from the end of civil societies, and of course, in the government iterations, there are different ways of engaging women, focus group discussion, or women groups discussion. But of course, there is an important role to be done, mainstreaming these strategies in the formal system, because at the end of the day, decisions are made through village assembly and the village council meetings. However, I think communities are not homogeneous. We should really appreciate it is not the same. If you meet women in the coast region, might be different from the people in the southern highlands or different from the people in the northern Tanzania. Therefore, these disparities also should be acknowledged as much as we keep on working on the system to ensure that women really participate actively instead of participating in terms of numbers.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate very much all of you for your absolute response to the question that was raised by Anna Marwa. Now, again, I just want to invite you to visit some of comments in the chat box. And let me read some of the comments that I can get from here. One comment was from Madam Justice Joaquin Dimero, and her view was that, and I read and quote, land worldwide, however progressive, is and has a male face. To break that, it requires a more pragmatic as opposed to theories. Yes, we have the laws, some are progressive, but this is one thing. Women themselves, and to start with, need to comprehend and appreciate themselves. Owning land itself is not enough. Land is power and life. It needs to translate well in economy, politics, and social well-being. That is her comment. And she also adds that 10 years serving the Judicial and Land Division of the High Court, the composition of women in tribunal is more symbolic. Many are just rubber stamp in endorsing the decision. Again, that's a comment from Justice Dimero. I hope that we shall have opportunity to hear directly from her if the opportunity permits. Now, again, the floor is open for any questions, interventions, while again appealing to all of you, please to mute your mics unless if you are speaking in order to facilitate the proceedings of this side event. I go to the chat. Again, there is a chat from Naomi showing the National Land Use Planning Framework there, which is available at the website. So there is a website that is already included there. I note as well that, oh, who else? There are also comments that, yeah, I think from the Vice President's office, which gives more clarification and more details in terms of some policies and the guidelines that are there, which you may again wish to take advantage and appreciate them in the chat box. Now, dear participants, the session was allocated 2 hours, which is 120 minutes. And I'm afraid we are also running out of time because we still have about 10 minutes. And probably I wish to use the remaining minutes once again before inviting the official who is going to move closing remarks. I just want to again appreciate and thank each one of you for active participation in our today's side event, and also bring to your notice that more or less same time tomorrow, we are also having another side event, which is really very promising. And I hope that I will be able to see you all tomorrow to the side event that's going to be organized more or less at the same time. And link to that has also been shared. And I hope that you'll find time to join the discussion. Now, with this note, allow me to welcome Ms. Abeida Rashid Abdallah, if she is in, so that she can deliver a necessary closing remarks. And Abeida Rashid Abdallah, again, I appeal to your microphones. If you can help us to, mute them, that would really be very much appreciated. Yeah. Oh,
okay. Thank you very much. First, I would like to take this opportunity to apologize because of my voice. I had a flu. I have flu. Sorry for that. His Excellency and distinguished delegates, I would like to thank organizer for organizing this side event. I also thank His Excellency Balozi and Honorable Minister Doris Gwajima for the keynote remarks. I will take this opportunity for their good presentation, but I would like to acknowledge participants who gave out their constructive comments and will take them into consideration so as to improve women's access to land rights in Tanzania. Land is a crucial element in any economic empowerment program. Lack of access of land hinder development. It's known that ownership and land property empowers women and provide income and security. Without such land, women have limited autonomy in decision-making at all levels, especially at household level, and no access to assets during crisis. This is also lead to other vulnerabilities such as domestic violence and GBV, gender-based violence. Some initiatives has been put in place by our government in terms of policy and legal framework on land rights. Tanzania, particularly in Zanzibar, we put gender-sensitive policy in 2018, which highlights 3 to 4 approaches to access land, including purchasing, inheritance, gift, adjudication. Also, the Constitution of Zanzibar 1984 states that all people are equally, so women has right to own land. Also, we have Qadhi Court. It is an Islamic-based court, which is a part and parcel of the government. So it is enacted by the Revolutionary Government of Zanzibar, which address the inheritance rights to people to own land. In 1920, we have Household Budget Survey, which revealed that there's increased women ownership to land up to 24%. Adjudication program that Zanzibar is implementing has contributed to increase women to have little title deeds of assets, including land. Also, we have Land Act 1992, which provide the rights to own land to both women and men in rural and urban areas. However, the climate change has impacted negatively women. Rising of salt water has taken away the lands that some women were using for agriculture purpose. Alternatively, programs for empowering women economically are critical, particularly those that have been affected by rising of salt water. We need to ensure those affected are among those who benefit from social protection scheme. Indeed, climate change is a challenge of this century. It affects women's and men's assets and well-being differently in cultural production, food security, and health. Yet, it is important to recognize the critical women play as powerful change agent to address climate change at scale. Let me end by emphasizing that more awareness on land rights is needed. We should also ensure that both men and women are granted equally opportunity to access land and own land. Mainstreaming gender equality aspect for development in Tanzania, both rural and urban and more. And we should note that climate change is an obstacle that everyone has equal voice in the sustainable future of their communities. We have also climate change policy. We have a strategy. Also, we need to consider for their implementation. I also support the panelists who also mentioned some intervention on the issue of the involvement of women in different land bodies from grassroots to national level, gender analysis related to land, gender inclusion guidelines, collaboration of stakeholders, community empowerment, promote leadership of women, as well as combating climate crisis. However, let's work together to support Gender Equality Committee to implement the commitment of our beloved President, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan of United Republic of Tanzania on economic empowerment and justice. Thank you for listening.
I thank Ms. Abeida Rashid Abdallah, Deputy Principal Secretary responsible for social welfare Gender, Elder, and Children of Zanzibar, but also a member of Gender Equality Committee and a former director of Department of Disability Affairs and chairperson of the Women with the Disability Organization. I thank you very much. With this note, I wish to again remind you that we are having another side event tomorrow, same time, perhaps same links. And I invite all of you to find time to join another very interesting and important session that again is going to add to share experiences, making local to global, and also be able to actively contribute meaningfully to most of what we are doing on the ground. Once again, I thank each one of you. I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. But equally important, I think, again, I hope you are also following what's happening within the context of the Commission of the Status of Women, which is going on as we speak here in New York at the United Nations. I thank you and have a wonderful day, good evening or good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're tuning from all over the world. I thank you very much. And the meeting is closed.